Welcome back. So I have the 22 Honda Grom here, and I know I've done quite a few Honda Grom videos in a row, and I actually have a couple more because I have so many parts on order and they seem to all be arriving at once. I actually teased the suspension on Instagram saying that I was going to do it this weekend, but I've got some other stuff coming this weekend, so thought I'd get to this midweek and get to some cooler stuff once the weekend rolls around. So these are the Racing Bros 5.5 Newton meter springs. You hear everybody complaining about the stock suspension on the Honda Grom. For me, as a lighter rider at around 140, 145 pounds, the stock suspension, which is 3.9 Newton meters, is okay, but it does have a bit of a pogo effect. Even when I just start wheeling the bike, I can feel it compress a little bit at the beginning, and it just doesn't have quite the sporty feel that will match up now with the look and the performance that the bike has. So I haven't ever changed springs in a Honda Grom. The Monkey's still running the stock springs, although I'm inclined to go with these if they work out well for me. Racing Bros sells these in 5.5, 6.5, and 7.5, and those bracket to different rider weight groups, so you can choose the one that works best for you. So in addition to the springs, I also purchased some 5-weight fork oil. This is the Liqua Moly brand. You also need to have, if you don't already, a special tool that will clamp the front shock where there's a couple of holes so that it doesn't rotate in your vise. And there's also a 14mm Allen key that you need to pull off that bottom bolt. So first step, I'm going to take off the triple tree here so that I can have better clearance to the 36mm nuts. I'm going to loosen these up slightly while they're on the bike since they won't slip because they're being retained by the triple tree itself. After I break those loose, I'm going to actually just use something here to attach it to the ceiling so that I can lift it up high enough that I can have everything support so that I can pull the legs off, get them in the vise, and hopefully just make this an easy switch. And before I take the fork legs off, I need to take off both the fender as well as the brake caliper. All right, so I've got one shock leg off. I think I'll just do one at a time. I have this loosened. I just need to take it off, drain the oil, and then I believe I need to take off the nut that's holding the rod so that I can pull it all the way out, and then affix the tool that I have so that I can try to spin this piece off and change the spring. I'm pretty wary of springs ever since I almost killed myself on the CB650 project, but I'm pretty sure the spring isn't on this side, so I should be okay. All right, and so then you can see here, there's a nut down here that I believe I need to use a tool to hold here, and then I'll use this to break it off and hopefully remove this piece so that I can pull it all the way down. All right, I decided I should probably drain all the oil first so that I can have this laying flat as I try to unbolt it. It was going to be too hard to try to keep it upright. So just pumping it back and forth to get all the oil drained out. Poor thing sounds like it's puking. So I hate working on the floor, but I feel like I can get more leverage and keep this a little more planted. Oh, that was actually real easy. I think I can leave that nut on there, but whoa. Anyway, this assembly is off. And I'll set it to the side. All right, so I let this one drain for a while. I really did have to pump it a lot more than I thought I did. And after letting it sit for a while, it seems to be pretty clear of oil. I'm sure there's still a little bit that's going to drip out as I'm doing these last few steps. That's one nice thing about having this epoxy coating is that on the garage floor, it's easy just to wipe up. But let me show you how this tool works. Again, this is from Steady Garage, and I believe it's actually also made by Racing Bros. So these both go around the shaft, and then the clamp can clamp onto these aluminum pieces and obviously not damage the shaft at all, but it just finds a good space there, and another one there, and then it's going to completely retain it. Then you can bite down on this with your vise pretty tightly as we try to spin off this piece over here. And then the next step will be to heat this up to 200 degrees. I saw some videos of people using a blowtorch. I'm not sure if this is paint or a powder coat, but either way I'd be scared of damaging the finish using just a blowtorch. So I'm going to use my heat gun. I also have a temp sensor so we can tell if it gets up to about 200 degrees, and then try to break this free. Then break free the Allen bolt that should be retaining the spring, swap the spring, and then put everything back together. This thing is making my lights flicker. All right, that's showing a temp of 191 degrees. Let's see if that's good enough. So again, this is reverse thread, so need to go clockwise. Easy peasy. So that Loctite, even once I broke it, was still pretty damn hard to get off. I stopped filming just because I was looking like an idiot as I was struggling trying to get it most of the way off. I think I'm finally at a point where it's coming off more easily, but maybe I should have heated it for longer. Anyway, it was definitely a fight. But it looks like I'm at the final stage. Yeah, and there's a ton of Loctite in there. Jesus. So I'm going to clean this up a little bit with a brass brush. And I'll be putting Loctite back on it when it goes back on, but just so that I can start the threads at least and not have to fight it all the way on. I'm going to clean up these threads and the ones on the other side. Okay, and in the last step, we need this 14 millimeter Allen key that came in the Racing Bros kit from Steady Garage to pop this out, and that should free the spring so that we can replace it, fill it back up with oil, and be done with this side. So with the leg fully extended, I don't think the spring's under pressure, but I'll aim it at the camera instead of my face. All right, a little bit of a pop. So there's the cap, a washer, and a spring. Let me get a towel. So this is the new Racing Bros spring. And the kit also came with these spacers. I think these are just effectively to manage preload. And I'm not sure if I'm supposed to put this washer back in or not. I'm going to assume that I don't, but the kit didn't come with any instructions. And I think there's already going to be enough preload just with the provided spacer here. And I believe this is supposed to torque down to 30 foot-pounds. I'm going to get some blue thread lock onto these threads and get this threaded back on. And then I need to fill this one back up with oil and be done with this to repeat it on the other side. I'm not sure what the torque is supposed to be on this, plus I'd have no way to measure it, so I'm just going to make it pretty tight. So before I put the oil back in, I need to get everything reassembled. All right, and I think I'm done other than adding oil. So it's supposed to be 235 milliliters of shock fluid that we're putting inside of that. This little container I have, I believe 8 ounces is, Alexa, how many ounces in 235 milliliters?
235 milliliters is about 7.95 fluid ounces.
7.95 fluid ounces, and this cup line goes just up to 8 ounces, so that should be close enough. So you need to keep pumping it up and down as you're adding fluid so that it all moves through the system. And I'm going to add just a little bit more because I did have some leakage. And that should be good. All right, so I've got one side completely done and proud of the work, but it definitely took a lot more time than I thought. So I'm now about an hour in and I only have one side done. So make sure that you set aside 2 or more hours to complete this job. But everything went pretty much as planned. There weren't any surprises. I'm gonna go ahead and complete the other side, get these 2 on the bike, and hopefully be done. Okay, now that I've got the legs back in the triple tree, I just lightly tighten them down so that they'd stay and make sure that they're perfectly even on both sides. And these get tightened down to 20 foot-pounds. 20 foot-pounds. And for these 2 pinch bolts here, alternate between them because they'll pull each other in opposite directions. These caliper bolts go to 22 foot-pounds. All right, and last step is to tighten these bolts down to 22 foot-pounds. Actually, very last step is to mount my handlebars again. And these are 20 foot-pounds. Actually, one more bolt to torque. This is the front axle. It torques down to 40 foot-pounds. All right, so I just did a 2-mile ride and a huge improvement. The bike isn't trying to dive every time I just lightly tap the brakes, and overall feels more responsive, a lot more like my ZX6R, but it's definitely not too harsh. Again, I only rode for a couple of miles. I'll do a follow-up video after I put some more miles on the bike, but off the bat, I'm very impressed with the difference that I was going to call it simple. It actually took me about 2 hours to do, but a relatively straightforward spring install. Impressed with the difference that that made to the overall ride. So still got some power planned. I've got some cool cooling stuff that I'll be installing here pretty soon, and a lot more coming for this bike. So anyway, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like it. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to the channel. Stay tuned for more videos and keep on building.